Hi Anti-Society, welcome back to the Anti-Social Planet, and today we are checking out episodes 236 and 237 of Bleach. And we just finished off with a little bit of a fight between Ichigo and Marumasa? I don't know if I remember his name correctly, but the person in charge of this Zanpakuto rebellion that has been going on. We had a conflict in Ichigo's interior world after Zangetsu was taken out, and then we just had Ichigo and his hollow side that were fighting back. So we have Ichigo back in the physical world, I guess, sort of, except Soul Society, so it's complicated. We have them back though with the rest of the people in Soul Society, and I don't know if we'll get much more of a conflict between them because I feel like that might be a end of arc kind of thing, but we still have lots of the other Zanpakuto that are around that haven't gotten to a conflict with their owners yet. We still have Renji going up against his. He seems to have mustered up some more of his strength and succeeded releasing his Zanpakuto in Shikai, so that's a very interesting development after it has been basically nothing from their Zanpakuto since there's the entity in them is now separated from the weapon itself, so it's a bit of a breakthrough that Renji's going through. We also have Hisagi who is up against his. There's lots of talk about like their like purpose or like what drives them, and I really like that conversation of seeing what it is that the Zanpakuto hold as important to them and why they want to be wielded by their particular Soul Reaper. We know that that is very tied up in who the Soul Reaper is themselves, so I really like getting to see how that is broken down depending on who the Zanpakuto is and the Soul Reaper that is connected with them. So lots of things still kind of putting the groundwork of what is happening with this conflict and why this conflict is happening. So let's get into episode 236. In 3, 2, 1, go. I feel like I'm like fidgeting a little bit. Don't mind me. I also think it's really interesting the connection between Soul Reapers and their Zanpakuto in the sense of their life, because we had some talk before about how they don't really know how to fight against these Zanpakuto, because if they do end up killing one of them, does that mean that a Soul Reaper now doesn't have their Zanpakuto ever again? You know, they'll have like their weapon, but they won't have like use of Shikai, let alone Bankai, so it becomes this whole other issue of how do you fight an enemy that you don't actually want to kill or injure, because it could result in issues later on, right? I'm sure every Soul Reaper, as I almost cough, wants to get their full power back. So there's definitely some issues as they try to figure out what is even happening. And of course we have like Miyuri working on that. Urahara working on that. I think Urahara might be the most interesting for this because he does have a lot of well, because he has some background in like studying Soul Reapers, but also he's not in Soul Society, and that seems to leave him unaffected. So he might get some more insight into everything that's going on. I didn't realize that Hisagi's Zanpakuto was like extremely chaotic because he's so like stoic that having something that almost makes you think of like a trickster spirit in like the design but also like in his demeanor is very interesting to me. I also like their interactions with like the way that Hisagi views his Sabakto is so different from other Soul Reapers. You're not going to see the same kind of heartbreak that you got from like Rukia. Kira! We love Kira. Still a little bit bitter about things to happen later, but I'm not going to get into it. It's true. He does philosophize a lot. I feel like he wants to teach, you know? Like he has a message and he wants people to know about it. Fighting one-handed too, that just seems like an unnecessary flex. Oof, good transition. I do like that Ichigo's using some hollow abilities, but I'm also nervous because he doesn't really know how to use his hollow abilities yet. Gonna say, aren't they attached? It's a little bit scary. Makes sense that Hisagi would like feel a responsibility though. Again, very stoic. He very much feels a sense of like honor and duty and takes being a Soul Reaper very seriously in a way that like some of the other people don't quite see. Like he doesn't want to get strong for the sake of being strong. He doesn't like fighting for the sake of fighting. It's more of like the honor of being a Soul Reaper to him and what it represents. Unlike his senpai though, that seems to be like, I enjoy death. Just taking it on like head on, which is kind of ballsy. Like Kira, you're going up against Shikai, with like something that is just a sword at this point. Good job getting away though. A lot harder to dodge in the air, so. I tell you, it's really hard not observing things that haven't happened yet. I'm like, now that I've like seen other parts of like the canon arc and I'm coming back, I'm like, it's really difficult to not be like, I have thoughts about about the Zanpakuto. Of course you can. You've got other stuff going on. Oh, is he gonna try and use it? Nope. I don't know if like channeling the hollow power through his Zanpakuto and trying to use it in the same way is as effective as just using his hollow power as a hollow power. Also, didn't we see this before? I'm like, didn't you? When you were all meeting before, you saw your Bankai being used. Am I crazy? Am I remembering incorrectly? I'm pretty sure that happened. I have a lot of questions about Sengetsu and like why he is sort of siding with the other Zanpakuto. I like how in this interaction Ichigo's just like, fine, I'll just have to fight you and then you'll stay with me. That's the solution. Ooh, that slight shake in the eyes is a good little detail in this. Of like, he's nervous, but he's also like determined. He's not quite sure how this is going to turn out, but he's going to make it work. I find this very distressing because this is my favorite Bankai, and I just need you to like not attack Adenchi. I have a sweet spot for him. You can probably read her attacks too, though. Like, you know your Zanpakuto better than anybody. Oh, we don't need to be throwing around shade like that. Ah. He's gonna try something that doesn't involve relying on his Zanpakuto. I mean, it is something that they can't use, right? So I feel like Kido would be a good use against Zanpakuto because it's not something that they can just mimic. Or like understand how necessarily the Soul Reaper is going to use it in the same way they would like Zanpakuto abilities. Look, I don't think he's thinking through his decision. He's just like, I don't know, let's try. But like maybe work on your aim a little bit. It feels like we're just throwing around attacks for the sake of throwing around attacks. I mean, that's what you get for using a broken sword. Nice. I was wondering if he was going to use a mixture of like Kido and the Zanpakuto. Interesting that they went back to the sword form though. So is it possible to deal enough damage that they just go back to their sword form, or what? And then maybe you have to like rebond with them in some way? I'm really not sure because this is like, I'm trying to keep in mind that this is filler and I'm like, I don't know how much of the actual canon lore applies to this part of the story. So I feel like for all that talk of like Renji's intelligence being his weakness, I feel like he's figuring some things out. Not on purpose. I feel like it's kind of happening for him. But I still think it's useful. Well, hello again. We don't usually see the like manifestation of the ability. I love the transition of like Hollow Ichigo being like transposed on, I don't know, human Ichigo. Dang, Ichigo. People live there. Yeah, I feel like everyone noticed that one. Spiritual pressure or not. So are there two of Ichigo's Zapato now? Interesting. It makes me think because a lot of his ability is like illusions and stuff to some degree. And then to have him kind of fade is interesting. See, we have like Zangetsu switching from like sword to like humanoid form. I hope Renji's doesn't do that because he trashed his sword. It like broke into a bunch of pieces. Oh, he looks so happy to hear them again. Interesting. But at least we know we can get everybody back. It's good to know. But like where? We don't know where he went. Yet. Oh, we saw that before too. Because he doesn't have a Soul Reaper, so it's like, where is he going back to? Interesting that his like physical form is kind of disappearing too, like especially since we saw that with the other Zapato, when they reached a certain point in the fight where they were weakened to some degree or they were able to get knocked out of the control, they turned back into their like sword form. If he doesn't have a Soul Reaper, then where would he like end up if he gets attacked that way? Because I'm assuming the reason that we have like Renji's and Ichigo's Sabato kind of going back to their own form is that they still have a Soul Reaper to be connected with. Hmm. I don't expect to have answers yet, but I feel like Miyuri is gonna be very interested on studying what happened with Renji and Ichigo. Yes, gardens and pets, please. Thank you. I like how they're like in agreement. Like Hollow and Zengetsu are like, we would like a garden and some pets, thank you. Real sweet boy. uh Okay. So I'm trying to keep in mind through a bunch of this that this is a filler arc and it's also before the other things that I've seen, because some of my thoughts of like this is how Zanpakuto work is based off of like later stuff. And I'm like, how much do they know? How much should I pay attention to this lore and how much of the lore I know applies to it? It's like getting confused in my brain a little bit, but I do think it's interesting that there is a way of reversing it and that it's more mind control than anything that's like it's solely from the Zanpakuto itself, where there was some debate before of like whether or not this was actual animosity that had built up in these Zanpakuto as they were like used as these tools by Soul Reapers and maybe didn't have the best communication with their Soul Reapers, but it seems that it is more about mind control and like pushing certain feelings and like amplifying them and making them at the forefront of the Zanpakuto's like consciousness. So it's a little bit different than them doing this out of their own like volition, and that there's a way to reverse it, which is great. We love the being able to reverse some stuff. I don't know how that is going to translate to other instances, like if it has to be the Soul Reaper against their own Zanpakuto, if that's the fight that has to happen. Interested to see how Renji actually was able to use his Shikai, if there is that disconnect between him and his Zanpakuto, or if it was because, like I was saying before, that the motivations for both of them were lining up and that was re-establishing that connection or breaking through the mind control a little bit to like reconnect them. Like the connection is still there, it's just that there's this block on the Zanpakuto side. So I don't know, it makes me wonder what's going to happen with Rukia, because she already released her Zanpakuto, so there isn't that connection anymore, but I'm assuming that she would be able to re-establish it, especially since, again, this is filler, that I've seen later stuff, she still has her Zanpakuto, so there is some, I think, stress taken out of this, because I know that later it's like everyone has their Zanpakuto again. So just some interesting things in terms of like the relationships between Soul Reapers and their Zanpakuto. I think that that's partly what I'm the most interested in, is seeing those interactions, which makes me think that like there's gonna have to be that Soul Reaper against their Zanpakuto like interactions. I don't know if that has to be the fight for them to like reestablish that connection between them, or if it's just going to be like the interest of seeing those two sides interacting with each other. But I really like the character kind of stuff. I like the Hisagi relationship with his Zanpakuto, because I think that it is like a good contrast between them, and I think it really reflects like how Hisagi sees being a Soul Reaper, is that even though it's a Soul Reaper and like inherently the job of a Soul Reaper is to reap souls, but he takes that in a more like honorary sense. It isn't in the sense of like bloodlust or wanting to fight as some of the other Soul Reapers have. It's very much in this sense of responsibility of someone having to have that role, and it should be someone who takes it very seriously and sees it as this very important line of work. So there is a wonderful contrast of that and some of the other Soul Reapers, where you have like Renji's motivation being more but like wanting to be strong and wanting to be able to protect and that kind of a thing, which I think very much plays off of his backstory that we know of, like, you know, wanting to protect people really fits with the experiences that he's had. So I'm excited to like dig deeper into some of those sides with the Soul Reapers and the Zanpakuto, but I'm also trying not to like dig too much into it. I feel like I'm kind of letting myself relax a little bit with this because I know it's filler and I know that it's not necessarily something that's going to be carried with other stuff. So I don't know how much to take in and how much I should just like exist in this like isolated arc. But with that, we should get into the next episode and see what other interactions we're going to see and what some of the developments are going to be now that they know they can get their Zanpakuto back. So there's a little bit of hope at the end of the tunnel. In 3, 2, 1, go. I'm really interested how Kenpachi's gonna fit into this, because we have him where he's just kind of gone at the beginning of this. But he has a very different relationship with his Zanpakuto, and I don't know if we'll get a chance to see him. Because I always feel like he's a wild card and they're just like, let's put him off to the side until we know how to deal with him. I would not be surprised. Especially since it would have just like introduced complications super early on in the season. Like, I'm not even saying that as like this is too much for us to be willing to deal with, you know, like where it's like, we don't want to deal with this right now, so we're just going to put it off. I almost feel like having Kenpachi at the beginning of this season or this arc would be like too complicated as you're trying to like explain all the other stuff that's going on. So I actually kind of appreciate that he's not part of the story yet, because he is an outlier and it'd be so hard to like accommodate for an outlier when you haven't even established the rules yet. Even like having like Yamamoto not here, I think is also kind of a similar thing, because Yamamoto is much stronger than the other Soul Reapers, so he automatically is like a complication in like any kind of system that you're setting up. And you don't want someone who can just like go god mode immediately and like fix the problem, right? Not really mind control, but an amplification of what they already feel. Which is why everyone is kind of different, right? All of the Zanpakuto have something else that's motivating them. It's great now that they have like Zanpakuto they can talk to, but like, what happened from your perspective? Because for us, you just like cut communication and then went rogue. I was gonna say, look at Ukitake being like, hey, we figured something out. And then Shinsui's like, true, however. So is this just like how they're gonna manifest now? Because we've seen Renji's was the one Zanpakuto besides Ichigo's where he had seeds, so kind of manifestation of it in a more like creature form. I can't say human because Renji's was like not a human shape. It's more chaotic that he has like two entities. You better not make Unohana mad because she's scary. Yeah, do not make her angry. This is her house. You better behave. I mean, you got trapped. Yeah, maybe heightening their emotions, specifically related to fighting, might cause some issues when they're not fighting Soul Reapers. I don't know how I feel about this entire conversation being them fighting over the approval of men, but at least it's a fan service. And yes, my bar is subterranean sometimes when it comes to shonen humor. Yeah, and you were fading a little bit. Are those two gonna be the next one? X3 anyway? That might be going after Ichigo, or are we all going after Ichigo? Seems like a lot. She was looking for her brother. But where is he? Because he's not with his squad. And he's not here defending Soul Society that we know of. So where is he and what's he doing? Like, I get Kenpachi going rogue, just like being off doing something else. Because, like, not that he doesn't care about his squad, but he's like, they can take care of themselves. Like how Ikugo's like, cool. Tell me how to do the thing. Ugh, don't yawn, it's gonna make me yawn. Ooh. Byakuya? Interesting. See, I want to know who his Soul Reaper was too. Nothing at all. Ooh. Graceful. Very aware of your surroundings. Gee, I wonder if that's his senpuk though. I don't know how I feel about there being two of them. Now that tracks. Maybe be a nicer person. And your senpuk would have manifested to be a nicer person too. Maybe. But I feel like this is gonna be more intense lead up than actual execution of them fighting each other. Oh, yeah. No, you did a good job, Ichigo. Look at Ikagi's just like, I don't worry about it. It's not so important. I'm assuming that's Ikagi's. Yeah. Makes sense that he would have the one that's like fiery and just kind of wants to pick a fight with everybody, but only if they're worth his time. We're not gonna share with the class what we're talking about. Oh my god, is this the dance? Me too, Ichigo. I did not forget about it. It lives in my brain rent free for reasons that I wish I could scrub. I hope that's how he proves. He's like, prove that you're my Seppuku. Do the lucky dance. I mean, maybe if you want to use that opening, don't yell something right before you attack someone. Probably, yeah. Mm, cool POV shot. Oh, be careful. Yeah, I'm like, it's gonna like whip around you. I forgot how much I liked Ikagu's Zanpakuto because I feel like he doesn't. We don't see him fight a whole lot, and certainly not all out. Like he's around to be one of those characters where you're like, hey, I know you, but I feel like he doesn't fight a whole lot. 'Cause of this as well. I feel like he's gonna be upset. He's gonna be like, just giving out my secrets like that? I see how it is. True. That does explain some of the decision for fighting style. Also, because of who his Soul Reaper is. We all know that sneaking around is not below his standards. I like how Ichigo threw his weapon back at him. Like, it's scrappy, and that's what we like about our boy. Oh, dang. I feel like he's not gonna want Ichigo to get involved though, because it's like battle should be one-on-one, right? See, that's what I said. But are we just like gonna not acknowledge the fact that somebody has seen his... I can't remember who's seen his Bankai. Who was like around? Because he has this whole thing about people not seeing it. I get filler, so I guess maybe it isn't... They're like, we could use it because it's not gonna be that big of a deal. I mean, a lot of people have seen his Bankai now, so. Yeah, you got one. Uh, he got a wall kicked at him and then went through another wall. So, he's a little bit rough. Oh yeah, he gone. Uh-oh. Do not go up against Byakuya's Senpakuto. Good smoke screen. So was he trying to get to the records, or was he following his Zanpakuto and trying to get get him back? Because we don't fully know what happened because Rikia and Arenji left. And then it's just them saying, we never found him. We don't know where he is. So we don't really know what went down with their fight. I'm also interested in like Saifon's Sapoto, which is like smaller and also part of the stealth squad, and I'm like, are we paying attention to that one? Because I feel like it's easy to be like to see some of them, like Ikagu's, which is like imposing and also ready to pick a fight. But are we paying attention to the tiny stealth force Zanpakuto that might be just like gathering intel? Because sometimes I don't notice that she's in a scene until like I like partway through and I'll notice. I'm like, oh yeah. Probably get experimented on. I feel like Mayuri would not give up a chance to figure that out. I'm surprised he wasn't like immediately wanted to do experiments on like Ichigo and Denji. Frog? Mm-hmm. Poor Denji. So I do like the clarification that it's not like mind control, it's like emphasizing a Senpakuto's abilities, like that, or motive, like the different feelings that they're having. It's just an amplification of that as opposed to like actual mind control. So I like getting that like specifically reinforced here, and we also have a little bit more covert ways of the Senpakuto getting in to get at Soul Society or being a little more strategic about what they're doing, but I also feel a little on edge about them wanting to single out Ichigo specifically, even though he's the protagonist and I kind of expect for him to be a little bit more of a problem than some of the other people. But also the fact that he was like, yeah, I'll just run after a Zanpakuto that is trying to get away. I'm like, have you thought that maybe they're trying to separate you from the rest of the group? Because before you had a bunch of Soul Reapers around you and then you just like ran off. Like, I get that he wants to capture the Zanpakuto and all of that kind of stuff, but like maybe we think it through just a little bit, just a little, because I feel like that might come back to haunt him at some point. Also, I like the whole thing with like Ikagu's Bankai, I feel like I'm like caught up on it and maybe I shouldn't be because it's filler, but I know that he was one of the ones that didn't want people to know about him being able to use Bankai and keeping it a secret, and now just like everyone was there seeing it and nobody's freaking out, nobody's like having a moment. I can't remember who all knew about it after what happened with the Espada and all of that, but then I guess it's not like Yumichika, who's like very much like no one is allowed to know what my ability is. So I wonder if that's gonna come up at some point where his Zanpakuto might push his buttons that way, of showing a little bit more about what his Zanpakuto even does. I'm also interested in Shinsui's because we haven't fully explored everything that his Zanpakuto does. So there are some like Zanpakuto that I haven't like fully seen what they're capable of yet, and I wonder if that is going to be hinted at this, or again if it's like there wasn't enough source material yet for them to like incorporate that, so they didn't even know, and I won't know what I should even carry forward because it's filler. So it's one of those things where I'm like both trying to be a little bit more subdued in like what I'm taking from this because it's filler, and I know that not everything is going to apply to later stuff, and I've seen later stuff, but at the same time I have all like the same questions and I want to explore this more, but I don't know how much of it is like actually pulling from stuff they knew from the source material or that was going to happen in the source material. I know sometimes authors of manga will like tell the animation team like stuff that's happening, so that people who are writing episodes that are going to be for anime only, they have a little bit more background about what's going on, but I don't know how much of that happened here, so I don't know what to take from it, but still love getting to explore like the whole Zanpakuto like lore and how they even work. I feel like there's so much potential there to like that part of the magic system, and I know like later stuff is also interesting me on like how Zanpakuto work, so y'all can let me know like how much of this I can actually like pull on and see where it leads, or if I need to see this as just like a arc contained thing. You can click this playlist to go and see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe soon as next time I post a Bleach reaction, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!